I'm totally out of breath. I was just doing push-ups to get yoked for this podcast, dude.
Oh, nice.
To get
You
on
can
your level.
tell. You can tell.
I'm totally out of shape, I guess. It's great to see you, man. I always leave the you're one of my favorite guys to have on the pod because I always leave feeling inspired to go work on shit after I talk to you.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. That's cool.
You've got a good dome on your shoulders.
Thanks, man. You as well.
Yeah, let's just rip right into it if you're down. Are you
Sure.
how's your brain?
Oh man, that's a great question. It's good. I've stepped away from writing for MILWAUKEE just because we just put out this record, and I really like letting them breathe. So I've been working on a lot of solo stuff in the interim. But we've been hitting the road pretty hard. We're about to hit it even harder this summer and fall. So my brain's dead set on just making these great live shows, and they have been some of the best shows we've played so far since this new album has come out. So it's been really fun to just kind of live in that and enjoy playing new stuff. And it's been good, man. It's been maybe the most fun I've ever had playing live music. So my
And
brain is good.
what do you think the catalyst to that is? Just being more established and just having just better crowds every night, or
I think it's a little bit of a combination of everything. So I mean, since we started releasing singles for this new album, our Spotify has essentially tripled. There's no doubt that that's playing into it. As you know, like there's only certain numbers that you can really quantify directly to ticket sales.
right?
The monthlies definitely help, but there's no doubt there's some smoke and mirrors with some acts, that you could have millions of monthlies and actually go around the country and have no one show up.
Yeah.
But that's definitely been a part of it. Yeah, I think people are just excited about the new stuff, and that, and a combination of us having done it for 10 years. I think it's kind of things just all falling into place and working together, um you know hand in hand, and it's been great. Feels good.
What do you think is this a new strategy you've had with, like, what do you think was the catalyst to tripling your like Spotify plays? Obviously you release singles, but do you do any marketing stuff around that? Or you just kind of
Yeah,
plop them out there and hope for the best?
it was we took most of the budget for this album and hired someone that just focuses in playlisting. um
Okay.
So we definitely had success with that. I think 7 of 12 songs on the album got playlisted, which is crazy considering we've had one prior to that of
Okay.
everything we've ever released over, 10 plus years. So that was kind of our priority. And that only gets you so far as well, because some of the playlisting is kind of a passive listen experience. People
Right.
don't always go, oh, what is this? Let me go listen to this band's entire catalog and see where they're playing. Um, but so that was kind of the priority, but also like randomly have like a deep cut from our first album that's now our number one song and gets like triple the plays any other song. It's really bizarre how that happens. Sometimes I guess the algorithm just takes a song and runs with it.
Do you know the
We've kind of
catalyst to that, or it was just like a
no,
random
I
thing?
don't know. I was just like, that's odd. That was a lot of plays for that song. Oh, keeps going up, and it stayed there.
Nice.
Just bizarre. Yeah, sometimes I don't know. I don't know how that stuff happens. But not complaining. But yeah, I'd say the playlisting was definitely the priority on this run. We didn't do any PR. Um, just kind of, yeah, playlisting and
Wow, that's awesome, man. I mean, that's something I've been like kicking around for years. Is just like, because we're kind of in this humdrum as musicians and artists that release albums, is like you hire a publicist. That's just what you
Mhm.
do. Everyone's done
Right.
that for 40 years. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like, man, I just spent 5 grand and I'm not
Yeah,
really sure I have much besides vanity metrics and some,
sure.
blog write-ups that 9 people read.
Right. I know. I think it's changed. I don't sit around and read music blogs. I don't know. There are still people that do find stuff that way, but it really just, so many people are finding our music through just the playlists, or through radio, and it all streams, recognize streams. Um, it just kind of snowballs in a good way. And if you do start getting, some of the attention of these playlists, then you might get some more love on My Morning Jacket Radio, Local Natives Radio, and all kind of works together. So I think that's been
Yeah.
helping.
Super interesting. Do you guys are I mean, you're kind of the band that I think of when I think of like savvy on the young savvy band on the business side of things. Are there other bands that are in your circle that are kind of also excited about learning about the business and getting after it on that side?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with our management slash booking agency that we've been working with forever. A guy named Matt Washburn, who is now one of our best friends in the world. We literally like know his parents. That's the best way to explain it. So it's odd calling him, an agent or um, anything that doesn't revolve around us all being best friends. But he's been such a catalyst for this. He is such a student of the game, incredibly excitable fella, and he loves talking about this stuff, and he loves thinking about this stuff, and the reality is it is absolutely a part of it all. So I think we've all been sort of learning together in real time. He's been with us, I guess, almost 8 years now. So there's been a lot of bumps in the road. There's been a lot of trial and error, as I think with anything. But there's no doubt that he's kind of like-minded in how do we expand this? How do we keep this growing? What's working, what's not? And he passes that down to all his bands on that roster. There's some amazing bands on the Atlas roster. Little Bird in particular, they're one of our favorites. Air Park. Just yeah, I think everybody's kind of on the same tip of like what how do we learn more about this, and without being like, oh, this is the kind of song that gets playlisted, and then being like, hey, let's write one like this. We don't let it leak into that. But that doesn't really matter because I've always loved pop songs anyway. I love a hook. So it's never been like, let's write a hook so a lot of people can relate. It's like, I love a hook, so let's write a hook,
Absolutely. Yeah, man, that's super interesting because I'm not that much older than you, but I got a few years on you. I'm guess like I'm like a class or a half a class ahead of you. And when I was coming up, I've talked about this maybe too many times on the pod, but like one thing I feel like my class didn't do a good job of was like lean into the music business side of things. Like when I started, I remember it was like very uncool to be interested in the music business. And maybe that's just because I was like in Madison, Wisconsin, around the university, which is like a really hip kind of costume wearing place to be and go listen to music, where like scene cred is such a substantial part of it. Maybe that was just the bubble I was in, but
sure.
No, I don't remember anyone else like getting after it, or if they had interest in like learning these kind of things to get your music out there, like no one would admit it because it was like
Taboo,
that is
yeah.
not what bands
Yeah.
do. Bands do not, you don't try to like promote your shit. That is a bad look. So yeah, it's great that you have that, and it's a beautiful network that and it sounds, I just think the cohesion with your circle is really good. Like bands that hustle, but also bands that like fit, sonically. It's like a beautiful thing, and that's always something I've sought after. And maybe it's been just living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you're kind of it's a bit of an island, or a bit excluded from some of the bigger places where there's just more bands playing and meeting up. But you're doing a great job. So you're probably like 50 shows in. How do you guys this year? How do you keep the sets fresh? Do you play a similar set every night? Do you not have a set? Do you improv moments? What does that look like?
We've always we'd say we're not a jam band, but we're a band that jams. At any point we can take it, sort of off the rails. But we've been jamming a bit less just because we want to play more songs. We have 4 records out now, so trying to get as many new songs in without, skipping some of the old ones that we know people want to hear. It's been a similar set list only because it's felt so good. The transitions feel amazing. Like we used to change it up quite a bit. I've always My Morning Jacket is just like my absolute pinnacle. I've based my entire career off of just how they've approached music and how they're still just incredibly true to themselves. But on any given night, they could play any song from any record at any point in the set. And I've always just wanted to be that band. At the same time, like this set list just feels too good. And it doesn't get stale because you know that moment's coming up that people always get fired up about. You know, these two songs back to back always hit. You know, this is where people really start to loosen up, start hooting and hollering. You know, so I think we found one that is really working right now, and we'll like maybe swap in some songs here and there, or maybe one night it's a very intimate and super receptive and quiet crowd, and we drop, you know, one of the quieter ones, just because we feel like it. But we have been keeping it like pretty tight, and it feels really good. Feels really good.
Have you met any weird characters on this run, or had any like weird,
Oh man,
freaky moments?
we play a game called we call it Hoove, and it is essentially you take the entire tour you just went on. It's usually on the ride home, and you play 20 questions, and it can be anyone you met throughout the entirety of the tour. So it's much more fun when it's a long tour because it gets way more difficult. But it can be someone that we had a 3-second interaction with, or it could be a member of the band. So you never know. It spans the spectrum. So that's always a fun game, and we absolutely meet a ton of characters. I don't know. Recently we had, it's always the private gigs, man. It's always the like random money gigs that you just absolutely don't know what you're getting into. We've recently got one, and it was like a college, and colleges shell out for a lot of this stuff. So it was a good amount of money. Like, we're all paying a couple months rent up this thing. We get it like a week out from when it's supposed to happen. We are emailing for all the info, not getting it. Finally, on midnight before the show is 6 hours away. At midnight, I'm in bed, and we get an email with all the advanced stuff. And it's like, if you guys could be here by 11 a.m. So we emailed back. I said, we would have had to leave yesterday in 5 hours to get there by 11. They're like, oh, okay. All right, let's do 3. We're like, all right, we can make 3 work. We show up at 3. It's basically a giant field. It's a Monday, by the way.
Perfect.
A giant field. Perfect. Like 30 kids strewn about, maybe a couple cornhole things, like an ice cream truck sort of hanging out on the side. And essentially, they were not ready for us to load on at all. So we didn't load on right before we played, and everything was running behind, but they had a curfew. So we set up, we played 3 songs, and the police said, all right, that's it. So we essentially got paid the most we've ever been paid for a gig, and we played 3 songs, and we went home.
Did that feel good? Did you feel like a con man? What did that feel like?
I mean, because it was just the organization of the event. It was in no way our fault.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel so bad. I thought we had until a certain time. So I was like, we're going to play one more. And this big burly police officer just walked up and went, no, you guys are done. And I was like, all right, good night.
That's like Bono numbers, like a couple G's a song, you know?
Right. We did.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we did feel that way. If we could eventually extrapolate that to the full sets, that'd be great. That'd be some chill.
Man, we've done this university gig the last couple of years up in northern Wisconsin, and like it's the same vibe, like no organization.
Yes.
The student promoter never really gives a fuck. Like, so we've done it like 3 or 4 years in a row. And the payday's good, so you just do it. It's just like, okay, no pressure. The stakes are low. We need the dough. But this year, the kid who threw the show was like fucking into it for the first, like he was, and it's a new student every year, a new student promoter, and like all it takes is like one kid to be pumped. He handed out flyers, just him. He went around like the student beer hall, handed out flyers. He like filled up the room to where it's usually like 20 people in it. Just him like that's being awesome. Excited. So I think that's a thing you see too in a lot of these smaller cities where it's like one person will just make the shit happen. Like we played in like northern Mississippi on the way home, and this gal who runs this like concert series, just her and maybe 1 or 2 enthusiastic locals around her. She just like rallies the town, and now there's something happening in this rural Mississippi town, and it's more than just like Skinner tributes and that sort of thing. They're like into like nuanced indie music. So
totally. That's
one
cool.
person can make a big difference, as I'm sure you've seen.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's, I mean, that's the root of growing a fan base anyway. It's people, it's friends telling friends, like, you cannot miss this band. You got to check them out. And those are the coolest people, or the coolest experiences of meeting folks that don't know our music and that just came to a show anyway. And then they're like, I'm going to go home and listen to all of your stuff and I'm going to come see you again. That's like the name of the game. I love that stuff. Also, people being open-minded enough to go to a show of a band they don't know.
Yeah.
I've always loved
Yeah.
that notion.
Yeah. It feels like that is not, I don't know a lot of people who will just randomly go
No,
watch live music where they don't know the
no,
band. That's pretty rare. That's like a specific breed of super music fan. And
agreed.
we love you if you're out there.
Definitely.
It's big. What about personal life? How's your work-life balance? You still got a girlfriend in Philly?
I do not. No, that has
Okay.
since ended. So I mean, yeah, that the challenges of the road and balancing personal life continue. I don't think they will ever. It's never gonna be easy. I think there's no doubt that there's probably maybe a better situation that I'll find myself in at some point. But yeah, it's the tale as old as time. It's difficult. It doesn't matter how much work you put in. There's always just a little bit of a lingering thing, a little bit of a dynamic of going out on the road and the lifestyle. And I don't know, maybe I'll find somebody that has a similar lifestyle and things will go well for me. But right now I'm just enjoying being independent, and I don't think I've ever focused on music more acutely in my life. And I'm excited about what I've been creating because of that.
Yeah, great to hear, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I relate to that so much. Like I've always struggled with like the romantic side of things just due to the calendar and
sure.
you're not able to put the time in at home, and that
Yeah,
it is brutal, but at the same time, that's at this moment it's like a tax that
yeah,
seems willing to pay just to be able to work on art full time. But yeah, it
sure.
does after you've done that a while. And I've been single a couple of years now. You do start thinking about the future. Like, will anyone actually date me
Yeah,
more than a
yeah,
year? Like, fuck.
totally.
So
Yeah,
it's just hard to turn down like work offers that are exciting. At this point, it's
sure.
like, I feel like I've turned a corner and I'm past like the toilet bowl circuit grind of it all, where things are starting to be more fun and like the offers are more interesting and some of the places are a little weirder.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, I can't like say no to 6 shows in South Africa. That would haunt my
Yeah,
dreams. If I turn that
totally.
down, like that would haunt me. So,
Totally.
but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I I got to go to more therapy. I don't know what the deal is, but
Yeah. I mean,
it's
and
a
also,
wobbly existence.
yeah, I hear that. But also, like, they're at some point I dealt with like some guilt with that, where, this is, I mean, literally our livelihood. Without touring, I'm not paying my rent. So uh that is like a always was like a non-issue. Like, this is what I'm playing this year. These are the shows, and every now and then we'd add some, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be away another week. Then I did feel a little bit of guilt. I got invited to this songwriters retreat on Nantucket. I'm not gonna say no to that.
Yeah, that
It
sounds
was literally one of
awesome.
the best experiences of my life. But to come home from tour, a month-long tour, and be like, I'm leaving again for another 2 weeks, not to play shows, not to make money, but to focus on this.
Right.
There are just certain things that are those are the difficulties, and those are the challenges of this career path. And I want to be able to give enough of myself to somebody. I don't want to half-ass anything, and I try to be incredibly upfront and vocal about that when I do start to get involved with someone, if I am not ready for that, which is where I'm at right now. I'm just incredibly upfront about I need this time for myself. I've got a lot going on, and hope you understand. And you can also
Yeah.
tell me to fuck right off. That's fair
Yeah.
too.
No, that's a great way to go into it. And how have you kind of, feel free to pass on the question if it's too personal, but how have you kind of bounced back mentally from the breakup? Has just like diving full into music kind of healed you, or
Oh,
what? How do you feel?
that's always a part of it. Breakups suck, man. Like no way to spin them that they do not feel like a loss in some regards, because they are. You go from having somebody there every waking moment and having someone in your corner, and now they're gone, and the adjustment to that is never easy. I definitely distract myself with music. I've been staying quite busy, hanging with friends and catching up with people as well, so that has helped. But yeah, my mental state is okay. It's tough, but it feels like the right thing, and I trust my gut, and I trust my barometer on these things. And the I talked to my cousin quite a bit about stuff like this, and he just said, you got to know there's no playbook to this. There's no, script to follow to how you heal, or how long it takes, or how long it takes them. So it's just like give yourself a little leeway, and give yourself some love and acceptance, and allow yourself to take whatever timeline you need. But I've been
Right.
feeling good, and I hope she's doing well too. She's an incredible person. So
Nice, man. Yeah, I feel like when you do get down and you do get sad as a human person, like it often does feel isolating, like you're the only one on the planet who feels that way,
sure.
but it is and I don't know if it helps to think that, everyone's bumming at some point or another or not, but no matter how much information you get, or how many times we go through these things, like when we're down, it's almost, well, I'll speak for myself. It almost feels selfish in the sense that you're just so far down the rabbit hole in your head. You're like, all you can think about is how sad you are, and that it's only happening to you, and that no one else is going through it. But maybe
Sure.
if we can get outside ourselves and think like, hey, everyone has their shit. Even the person with like the most charisma, who seemingly has it all together, like has their demons and their
Oh yeah,
crap they're working through. So
definitely.
it happens to everyone.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. Um, so a songwriting festival in Nantucket. Nantucket, it sounds like a myth. I can't even think of where it is on the map. I just know it from that poem. I once met a man from
Yeah,
Nantucket with a dick so long he could suck it.
yeah.
What is this, Rhode
I actually
Island? What
never
is
heard the
this?
second line of that.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
always
It's
I
big.
always just thought it ends with an ellipses. Um, After Nantucket, dude, it's amazing out there. It's off the coast of Cape Cod. It's
Okay.
you take an hour-long ferry. Absolutely beautiful. I just love New England. I've grown up going to the Cape every summer, same week every summer. That's just like my family's spot. But I had never been to Nantucket, so it's a kind of a different thing. Um, it's definitely like higher end, like a lot of money up there. So thank God they put us up when we play, because I don't know if we'd be able to afford
Right.
it. We'd probably have to take the ferry back and get a hotel on the mainland. But so it was just 4 songwriters, and it's the folks that booked the venue that we play. It's a great little spot called the Gaslight, and um, Matt Washburn, our agent, knew that they did this songwriter retreat every September, where they invite a handful of songwriters to come stay in this like 1800s farmhouse, like out in the country. It's basically like a little downtown, and then everything else is just kind of spread out. um there's like a certain percentage of the island that is protected and you can't develop on, so there's quite a lot of space out there. It's actually a really interesting setup. So I just had 10 days essentially to live in this beautiful old home and on this big property, and just take my guitar to a different spot each day and set up and just write, you know in little clearings in the woods, or out in the field. And it was absolutely a once in a lifetime opportunity. It was so much fun.
So it wasn't
So cool.
co-writes. It was all
You could use that time for however you'd like it to use it.
okay.
So I just kind of used it to just get in my own space, and kind of take myself out of my little Philly apartment, and see what came of it. And the other songwriters, some used it just as a vacation, some used it in different ways. One guy's a filmmaker as well, so he was I think finishing an album, but also starting maybe on a screenplay. So it was just everyone kind of used it in their own way, but it was like just even to be there and to be with like-minded people and to at the end of the day just get to chop it up with them and talk music and talk life. That was inspiring in itself, rather than sitting around and all writing together. The co-write thing has always been interesting to me. I'm starting to do it a bit more. But it's a muscle that you have to, I think, work out. Like if I can sit in my room and work on the same line for an hour and a half and no one's going to get bummed out. You can't do that with a co-write. It's like, all right, let's move on. I can be weird and a little neurotic in the privacy of my own writing space. As soon as you invite somebody else in, it just changes the dynamic inherently. That's just how it is, but it is fun. It's really fun because it's always like, oh, I never would have thought of that. You're a genius, and then you might sing a line. They're like, oh, I never would have thought of that melody, but that's just what comes naturally from you.
Yeah, it gets you out of your own patterns that you've been like, oh, I've used this chord progression way too many times. And then, there's like that nuance that helps. And I feel like after a co-write, you're kind of like committed to walk away with something, at least like a finished idea of something. Whereas if you're by yourself, it's just so much easier to slack off, and
leave it hanging. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
I've always found like if I'm gonna go at a song, I think do a session, I feel like 3 hours is like the magic amount of time.
Okay.
Where you can like complete an idea without totally burning out.
Overcooking it. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you once in a while you get lucky and you get lightning in a bottle and write something faster, but usually it's like if you can commit to 3 hours, you're gonna have something. What about you? What's your kind of, if you're doing a songwriting session by yourself, what do you try to commit to time wise? What's the strategy?
I don't really have a time on it. I'm very from the camp that I guess I'm somewhere in between. Inspiration is going to hit when it's going to hit, but at the same time, if you're not sitting down to try, then it won't. Every now and then you do get that little, kernel, we call them, in your mind where you're like, oh, okay, that's a cool idea. Let me go run off of that. But a lot of times I sit down, I just start playing. I start singing some random stuff over some chords, and maybe an hour later, I have something that I'm like, this is terrible. Or an hour later, I have a full song. And I've recently I'm a big like write a verse and a chorus. And if second verse isn't coming yet, leave it. Then come back to it with fresh ears another time. And sometimes you come back and you're like, no, that is not going anywhere. Sometimes you come back and you're like, when did I do this? This is great. And you'll run off of it. And then you're sort of your future self at that point, now analyzing something that you did back whenever, whether it was a month ago or I've taken songs from 4 years ago, and now it's 4 years later of writing experience, of road experience, of life experience, and now I am a new version of myself that is taking this old idea and how I might change it completely, or at least enough to fit the direction I'm going in at the time. But I've always been fascinated by like sort of taking that little time capsule of something you've worked on and revamping it. But I don't really have a time limit. I'll work on stuff sometimes and forget to eat, and you look at the clock and it's 1 a.m. and you're like, okay, I probably should have done dinner. But those moments where you get lost in it, that's what I live for. I love writing probably more than anything else.
Do you prefer to write on an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar?
So that's another thing. I've been trying to get inspired just by instruments alone. I've been using a lot of on my acoustics, a lot of like foam mutes, just because it deadens those strings and it makes you play differently.
Well, how do you do that?
Just take like I don't know if I have one around here. Just basically back by the bridge. So I've been listening to a lot of actually that new Marcus Mumford solo record has like blown my mind. He did it with Blake Mills. I was never a Mumford and Sons guy.
Oh yeah.
Never liked that band, but I loved his stuff with the new Basement tapes. And then he made this album with Blake Mills, and Blake Mills is like God to me.
He's the man.
He is the absolute man. And he's using a lot of like muted like rubber bridge guitars that this cat like in LA makes. I think Phoebe Bridgers has a bunch. You can hear that kind of plucky thing going on. So it's like a really
Ah,
percussive and cool sound. So I wasn't going to go out and get a custom rubber bridge guitar, but my roommate had some foam and I've been putting it back in there and it just totally changes the sound of it's cool. It's really
you
cool.
slip it under the strings by the
Yeah.
bridge
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
your
If
right
it's like,
hand is.
yep. Yeah. Like if it's a soft enough foam and
Okay.
it's back there, you won't get that like buzz.
It makes it sound
Um,
like an old timey guitar kind of, or
yeah, it makes it sound like I really wish I had something right around here. I would show you. Um, kind of old timey, just yeah, just it depends on how hard or soft the foam is too. It'll deaden them less or more. But it really just kind of it almost sounds like a baritone ukulele or something. So
oh,
it's got
cool.
that deadness to it, that kind of clunkiness. But it's great for finger picking stuff. It's really cool if you strum it and double it. Been doing a lot of that. I also
Nice.
just bought a baritone guitar. So to sit down
Ah,
with a baritone and just feel,
oh,
the different
electric.
chords. Yeah, yeah.
Would
Reverend.
you play
Really,
live
really.
with that ever, you think?
Yeah, because I want to start writing. I played a solo show recently and I was playing some songs on it. And I would play it
Fun.
with Mo Lauda too, because Jeff plays it in Mo Lauda on maybe 4 or 5 songs now. And I want to start writing stuff just because it takes you out of that world. It's okay, this is a chord progression I may have used, but now it's on a
Yeah.
baritone
Yeah. Yeah.
four steps down or whatever,
Yeah.
3 steps down, and it sounds gnarly. Sounds
Great
really
idea.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, I've been writing on roughly the same acoustic guitar for years, and I just bought it's like feels clearly time to switch it up, And I just
Hmm.
bought like there's these new little desktop amps that are like long. They almost look like a large Bose speaker,
Okay.
and they sound primo. And they're like
Yeah.
300 bucks. You can even
You're
run
gonna have
them
to
on a
send me that.
yeah, yeah, you can even run them on a battery. I'm even gonna take it over to Europe for like solo gigs and like run it as a second channel as like an electric guitar.
Cool.
But yeah, they're it's the tech is just getting crazy. I feel like in the next like couple of years, there's gonna be no excuse for bad live sound. Like if you're
Right.
dogging it, if you're a ponytailed sound guy and it sounds poopy, or there's gonna be no excuse. Tech is gonna be too good. You're just going to be able to press a button and it's going to be like AI sound, man. Like that will be the
Yeah.
coolest part about AI. Like fuck AI songwriting and like
Yeah. Just give us a sound guy.
faking fake Kurt Cobain and fake Kanye. Just give us an AI sound guy with a button and it just automatically dials you. I'm
Mixes
just
the
thinking of this
input.
now. Like it gives me hope.
Who's gonna plug in all those mics?
Maybe you won't need mics. Maybe they'll just be in the ether. You know what I'm like? The mic will be like a grain of sand that just drones over in front of your little amp or
Yes.
something. And you have different, like the ponytail sound gate will have different settings where it can be like live U2 mix, White Stripes
Yeah,
mix,
yeah.
you know what, Mo Lauda setting.
Yeah.
So that could
Well,
be
so
big.
so we're not phasing out the ponytailed sound men as a whole, but they just have to do less work.
They'll be
Okay. They
dragged
still
out
have
in the
jobs.
backyard and
As long as
executed.
we're
Yeah.
still creating jobs.
No, there will be no more jobs for
Okay.
the ponytails. God love them. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Um, yeah. What else, man? I lost my train of thought. Are you getting anywhere weird? Are you getting outside of the country at all for music, or
Um,
or just leisure?
we're finally doing Canada. We've never played Canada. We're doing Toronto, Vancouver, and Canona. I don't know how to pronounce it, or I'm just forgetting how it's spelled. So that's gonna be fun. Those are selling well. I mean, people have been one of those people have been asking us to come for years, but logistically just never worked out. It's kind of like what we did with Florida. Just it's tough to get all the way down there on a lot of tours. It doesn't make sense logistically always. So I'm stoked for Canada. I might go visit Australia later this year. I've never been. That might be like an end of the year touring is done. Let me go check out this absolutely wild place.
For adventure or
Um,
for solo record music?
I'd probably play a gig,
Yeah.
because actually Sydney is like top 5 for my Caiola stuff as far as streaming goes, which is interesting. So I would play a gig or two, but really just for leisure, just to explore.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe pop over to New Zealand while you're there.
I mean, yeah, I can't say no to that.
I
Looks
can't
beautiful.
I can't say I have any tips on Australia. That's a place I went twice and
Have
just
you
had
done
like
it? Yeah. Yeah.
soul crushing experiences. Like I just went like before I was ready, probably.
Mm.
And just like it's
To
so
gig,
far.
to
Yeah,
tour.
it's a
Yeah,
gig. Just like pretty crusty, like DIY tours and stuff. I
yeah.
um at one point, Brian Ritchie from the Violent Femmes, he runs a festival in Tasmania. So he put me on his festival, and that was an incredible victory, and like alone worth the trip. It was in this like it's in this weird art museum in Hobart, Tasmania, and they just throw gigs all over this kind of eerie, strange museum. So you'll be playing like they put a stage in front of this like giant butthole exhibit where it's like the inner workings of like someone's stomach, where they have just like actual shit like rolling through this big like
No,
giant contraption like of chemistry bottles and beakers and oversized
no.
beakers, and like there's like a stage off to the side of it. it's it's
What a stage set.
it's something, dude. It's something. But yeah, I hope you have a good time. I'm sure your tour will go better than mine did. I'm never going back. I'll go to Hobart, but I'm not setting foot on mainland Australia.
Yeah.
I got PTSD. Oh, and the girl I was dating, there broke up with me
Oh,
immediately when I landed on Australian soil. So
oh. Wait,
too
you
much.
were dating a girl from there?
Yeah, this is when I
Yeah.
lived in Vietnam. So
Mm.
I was kind of in Oceania already. But yeah, this girl I was dating in Vietnam had moved to Australia for like 6 months, and I went to visit her, and she pulled the plug right when I
Oh,
got there. So I was a dude.
welcome.
It was pretty pathetic. I was legitimately just like partying with homeless people in like the parks of Melbourne. Like I had no
Oh my
contacts or friends
gosh.
there, and this is like pre-smartphone. So I'm just like walking around Melbourne with a burner phone. Everything costs like
Oh
20
my
20
God.
bucks for a little cheeseburger and stuff. So I was just going to co-ops, like these homeless guys were just showing me like where to eat at co-ops, and like we were just buying Melbourne bitters and drinking them out of brown paper bags, which is funny thinking back, but at the time it was like
Yeah.
I was just praying like the train just like ran me over.
Oh my God.
It was dark times, dude.
I'm sure well, I hope my visit doesn't go just like that, but I'll make
No, I
sure
mean this. I'm
to bring
saying
my
this
flip phone.
because it's just gonna make anything you do over there so much more
Better.
rad.
All
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, cool.
What was the lowest romantic point in your life? Just retroactively thinking about it now, are there any funny, like soul crushing romantic moments where at
Oh
this juncture in
man.
time you're like, it's pretty funny to think about?
Yeah, like going to a certain length for something. Um,
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
trying to think. I mean, I just remember being absolutely wrecked by my first college breakup, and looking back, I'm like, I was 19 years old. It's just like it's funny to think about that. Just didn't know shit about anything.
Yep. You feel like the
And to
world
think,
is ending.
yeah, oh yeah, you're like, that's it. That was the one. That's I'm never, it's just so funny to think about it that way. I think that's like, also the beauty of like that age and like the intensity and vulnerability of like falling in love at that age.
Mm.
I definitely got a ton of songs out of it. So
Hey, well, think about if it goes the other way. Like you do get married or you marry your 19-year-old sweetheart.
yeah, yeah, people
That's a
do
very
that.
emotional decision. Emotional
Definitely.
decision making, and I've done it. Like it's just dangerous. It's so dangerous.
Mm,
Like any decision where you're in the heat of like the tip top or the low bottom of an emotion, it's just the outcome is it's rarely going to be good. It's
yeah,
just you're seeing double. Your perspective
sure.
is out of whack. But
I mean, sometimes you need far more time than this, but I think everybody could benefit from the old like 24 hours. Whatever you are making a decision on right now, just give yourself 24 hours. It can change things so incredibly drastically. It's easier said than done, as are a lot of things, dealing with emotions. But to just take a step back and say, will I feel this same way at this time tomorrow? I think it's so important, especially in relationships. I've learned that. That's for sure. Definitely.
dude,
Just giving a little bit of
for
a buffer.
sure. Yeah, or yeah, just like being reactive to things. Like if you get an email that pisses you off, or a
Oh yeah,
comment online that someone says something shit, all you want to do is just like fire back. But
totally.
you gotta
Totally. Right
not,
from the
yeah,
hip. Yeah.
you gotta let it breathe. So
Yeah. Like I said,
uh,
easier said than done. That's a lesson in self-control that I'm still learning. So
For sure, man. Are you a Philadelphia lifer? You think that's your base camp for the long haul?
I don't know, man. We go to all these amazing places. I love Philly. Philly is home to me, but sometimes we go to these places, and you're like, man, I could do this one. I could live
Yeah,
here. I could
yeah,
give it a shot at the very least. But now it's like, it's moving a family of four. What are we all gonna move? Guys got girlfriends. Guys got have studios that they've
yeah.
built over 8 years.
Right.
I'm not gonna be the guy that moves away and my ass is getting flown in to
Yeah.
rehearse.
Right.
Plus, I
Right.
love these guys. I love my network here. These are my best friends in the world, and my immediate family is here. My mom, my brother, and sister-in-law and nephew. So I don't know how far I could get. But if there's a full blow up scenario, then maybe California is calling my name. But we'll see. We'll
Are
see.
kids kiddos on the cards for any of your bandmates? That
No, not even close. I I
lucky
I
you.
I think that might be the number one reason bands break up. But I mean, it's amazing. And I'm seeing friends have kids, and I'm seeing the joy that brings their life. I just don't know if that's in the card for me. Certainly not now. Again, never say never kind of thing. I'm not gonna answer a question for something that I might have a different answer for 5 years, 10 years down the road. But
Right.
at this juncture, if I were to have a child, it would change everything. It's just not something that is in the cards for me at the moment. And same with the other dudes. They're just two of them have girlfriends, two of us are single. No one's really at that point in their life, which definitely bodes well for us all being on the same page and continuing to chase this thing.
Yeah, man. Well,
It
full
is a
steam
huge part of
ahead.
it.
You guys got a ton
Yeah,
of momentum. You got great band family, great band chemistry, friendships. It's like, I mean, you've really won the lottery on that front. So keep the
I do
keep the
feel that
train
way.
fucking
Yeah.
rolling.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's really cool when people recognize that, especially touring musicians. I can't tell you how many times they've just guys have pulled me aside, or girls have pulled me aside and just said, uh, how how incredible this crew is and how lucky I am, which I know, to have these guys I've been playing with for years, to have these guys that are like-minded, that are friends outside of the band, and just what a reliable crew, and great musicianship, and not having to hire this revolving door of, oh man, okay, this drummer can't play these gigs, I
Yep,
gotta
yep, yep.
teach another. I,
That's a
I spoke
nightmare.
to such a nightmare, and luckily I've never had to deal with that on the drums front. I've been playing with Shane since ninth grade. But yeah, I see what other bands could be if if everybody was chasing that common goal. But you don't always get that, especially with a hired gun. Why would that
Yeah,
person be nearly as invested as you are in
right.
this? But that's definitely the family and communal aspect of our crew, and I feel incredibly, incredibly lucky to have it.
No, I love it, dude. I love you. I love your ethos. Love your band. Yeah, let's connect in Wisconsin, man. I think we'll both be at Mile of
Oh
Music,
yeah.
so we'll
Oh
hang
man.
there. It'll be
Summer
great
camp for
to.
bands. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it'll be great to hang in real life. Um,
Absolutely.
we'll spin that track, and thanks for coming on again. Anytime you want to come chat, let's do it up, Jordan.
Thank you for having me, man. I'll see you soon.
All right, brother.